So welcome everyone from Faslane to 4 Mile, the nuclear crisis, and I hope everyone is doing well and keeping safe. We're very conscious that the time difference hasn't made this the most attractive time for an event in either the UK or in Australia. So, well done everyone for being here. And of course, a huge thanks to all of our speakers who are joining us, particularly those who are joining us from Australia. My name is Iona, my pronouns are she, her. I am one of the organisers of this event. I work closely with Glasgow CND. The first thing to just quickly mention, as I'm sure you've all heard, this event is being recorded in its entirety. Now that doesn't mean too much for you as attendees, but just during the Q&A and in the chat, if you would prefer to remain anonymous, then please make use of Zoom's features that allow you to do that. Yes, and just a note to everyone to please keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. So we have 3 sessions on today, along with an overview statement towards the end of the event. Each of our sessions is going to focus on one element of the nuclear industries and be spoken on by a voice from the UK and a voice from Australia. The event is going to explore the really devastating impact of the whole nuclear life cycle, from the uranium mine to the fusion reactor to the bomb. So it's not going to be particularly cheerful stuff, so strap yourselves in. But we have scheduled a 10-minute break after the second session, so you can go outside and shake your fists at the sky or have a restorative weep into your cat or however you like to blow off steam. Our first session is going to be on nuclear weapons, and on that we're going to be hearing from Lynn Jamieson, Chair of Scottish Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, and most likely Dave Sweeney, I think. And our second session is going to be on nuclear production, in which we're going to hear from Dr. Gillian Marsh, who's currently working as a lecturer in Indigenous Studies at Victoria University, and Daniel Selwyn from the London Mining Network, an author of their report on Marshall mining. After the break, our third session is going to be on nuclear power, in which we should be hearing from Dr. Jim Green, and who is the nuclear campaigner with Friends of the Earth Australia, and Dr. Ian Fairley, who is an independent consultant on radiation in the environment. We're going to finish with an overview from Dave, who's the nuclear free campaigner with the Australian Conservation Foundation, and who's been closely involved in the international campaign to abolish nuclear since its inception. There's going to be time for a short Q&A at the end of each panel, and if we don't manage to hear your question today, I'm sure our speakers won't mind if we email some out after the event. And we will be in touch after the event to let you know where you can watch the event online in case you missed anything today. For those of you who haven't already sat through 1,000 Glasgow CND events, Faslane is the name that is commonly given to the event. I just ask everyone to mute, please. Faslane is the name commonly given to the naval base on the west coast of Scotland, where the UK's nuclear weapons system Trident operates. Trident in the UK consists of 4 nuclear-powered Vanguard-class ballistic missile submarines and 58 Trident II D5 missiles, the latter being leased from the USA. 8 miles west of Faslane, a base known as Coalport, is the Royal Naval Armaments Depot, in which the nuclear and other warheads are stored and processed and issued. The exact number of the thermonuclear warheads in the UK right now is to a certain extent unknown. Britain did greatly reduce the stockpile following the Cold War when we signed the United Nations Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. However, this year, the British government announced that that number would be increased for the first time since then to a maximum of 260. And it's believed that at least some of the additional ones have now arrived at Coalport. The warheads are also regularly maintained at another base, which is in Burfield, right down in the south of England, and they get convoyed back and forth between the west coast of Scotland and the south of England several times in big green trucks, all on public roads, which is exactly as safe as it sounds. Once they've been loaded onto the nuclear submarines, they will be at sea for months. For over 50 years, Britain has had a continuous nuclear-armed patrol at sea, with one submarine on patrol and an additional 2 on standby, ready to go to sea at short notice. The nuclear-powered submarines can each carry 16 missiles, with each missile carrying up to 8 warheads, most of which are about 100 kiloton. The government has, however, stated that each submarine, as a matter of policy, now only carries 8 missiles loaded with 5 warheads for a maximum 40 warheads per submarine. And to put that into perspective, according to one report by Scientists for Global Responsibility, one submarine carrying 40 warheads could kill or injure somewhere between 10 and 20 million people. So that's what we're dealing with in Glasgow. But this isn't just one more event about Faslane. When we started to think about this event and the ideas we wanted to platform, we were very conscious of the looming COP26 conference coming to Glasgow. And not only the fact that all of these nuclear weapons activities are happening, less than 30 miles upstream of the COP venue, that there's also going to be this inevitable promotion of nuclear energy, particularly within the UK, as sort of humanity's saving grace in the face of climate change. And sure enough, we were treated to such delights as a hashtag net zero needs nuclear flash mob on Buchanan Street, which is the sort of central street in Glasgow, in which they performed a sort of pro-nuclear adaptation of Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler, which it is on YouTube, but I will not be sharing that link today, as it will ruin the original song for you, and it may also haunt your dreams. Meanwhile, this year we were watching as the Australian government was beginning its acquisition of nuclear-powered submarines, and one feasibility study from Boss Energy suggested that the Honeymoon uranium mine, which halted activity in 2014, the same year that the 4 Mile mine was opened, may be reactivated within as little as 12 months. So we really were conscious that we needed to draw attention to and resist not just the greenwashing of nuclear power, but the clean washing of nuclear power, this kind of projection that nuclear energy exists in a vacuum or a bubble, completely unassociated with the humanitarian and environmental impact of uranium mining or the nuclear weapons industry. And so from there, this event kind of began to take shape. So another thing to mention is that we're very grateful to Secure Scotland for letting us borrow their Zoom and their social media for this event. And for those of you who aren't familiar with them, check them out. They're doing great work, really looking at examining the many challenges facing Scotland in particular, but through the lens of kind of real human security. So making those links between the various crises, promoting people-led solutions, and sort of challenging those definitions of defense and security that have led us to this point. And I feel that resonates with the work that Glasgow CND has been trying to do and that we're doing here today. We do a lot of campaigning around Faslane without necessarily thinking in too much depth about the history and the wider systems that keep those submarines in the water. And so this year we've been really trying to build our understanding of Trident and of Faslane, not just as a nuclear weapons base on our own doorstep, but really as one small iteration of a global industry and a larger patriarchal colonial capitalist system of which we've not felt the worst effects, but one which affects every life on this planet. Understanding that nuclear weapons and militarism are more than just a divergence of funds and attention away from issues of real human security, but are in themselves a vital ingredient to fueling those humanitarian, health, ecological, and climate crises that make everyone's daily lives so unsafe. So earlier this year, we held an event honoring Marshall Islands Remembrance Day and brought a representative of the Marshall Islands together with campaigners and artists from all over Scotland to hear about the awful legacy of destruction left there by nuclear testing programs. In a small token of solidarity, we planted a tree to create a living memorial at the Faslane Peace Camp, which is a sort of permanent occupation just across the road from Faslane, which has been there since 1982. And there's a tree there which was planted by survivors of Hiroshima to show solidarity with those victims. So we thought it was very important that we had another tree to honor the victims of nuclear tests as well. And today's event is part of, growing that commitment to approaching the struggle from a perspective that really recognizes the wider context and the systems at play and works in solidarity with those affected. As opponents of nuclear weapons, particularly in a state that hosts them, I think we really have a duty to understand and call out these oppressive systems that have allowed for their creation, for their testing, their proliferation and their use. Otherwise, we simply risk seeing them replaced by other equally horrifying threats to everybody's existence, and all of the other violent symptoms of these systems will continue to cause harm. And it very much seems that international solidarity is the opposite and maybe even the antidote to the nuclear industries. We must always be infusing our campaigns with as many perspectives as we can. We must always be learning from one another's experience, and we must be working towards a safer vision of security based on community, solidarity, and ecological justice. Or we risk winning the struggle against nuclear weapons at the cost of the fight for peace.